A massive shout out to the Jonin tier member Mr. Leroy 1998 and Jenin tier Leah Rov. Your support means a lot. If you would like your name mentioned in every video, support the channel, as well as receive special perks and soon having early access to new series, consider becoming a member of this channel by hitting that join button. Hi guys, this is the next part of What If Naruto Had the Most Powerful Ice Zanpakuto Hyôrinmaru. I hope you enjoy. The large, thick wooden doors opened with a loud, agonized creak, revealing the lively village of Konohagakure, the Hidden Leaf Village. 5 figures stepped through the gate, 3 dressed in black and the 4th dressed in red and green with long white hair. The 5th member was dressed in an extravagant but dirty white kimono. The moment they had entered, one of the figures turned to another and bowed. "Taicho," Hawk said respectfully, "I must report to Hokage-sama." "Go ahead, Kimimaro," Naruto said. As Kimimaro straightened and leapt onto a rooftop, Naruto cupped a hand over his mouth and yelled, "And I'm not your Taicho anymore." A chuckle from one of his other companions brought the full force of Naruto's glare. "You find something funny, Nisan?" "Not at all," Itachi assured him unconvincingly, waving his hand dismissively. "I am merely admiring the depth of Kagaya-san's loyalty." Rolling his eyes, Naruto jumped up onto a tall, thick wooden signpost and took a deep breath as he spread his arms wide. Eyes bright, he took in the view of his beloved village, the very village he had left nearly 2.5 years ago to get some training done. He laughed suddenly, a broad grin stretching his lips. "I've missed this place." "He's certainly cheerful today," Jiraiya muttered under his breath. "Maybe so," Mitsunari said, the amusement in his voice clear, "but we wouldn't have him any other way." Eyes alight, the blonde continued, "It hasn't changed a bit." Naruto suddenly blinked as he caught sight of the Hokage monument, then grinned. "So they've added Tsunade Bachan's ugly mug to the mountain, huh?" "Hey, you've certainly grown a lot," a familiar voice commented. Naruto looked back to find a silver-haired Jonin that he'd recognize in his sleep. "Haven't you, Naruto-kun?" "Kakashi-sensei." Naruto leapt off the pole and landed on the steel awning next to his previous teacher. "You haven't changed at all. Still reading Ero Sennin's dirty books, eh?" Naruto's eyebrows jumped up. "That reminds me." He rummaged around in his kunai pouch before pulling out a familiar orange book with a different and new title. Kakashi grabbed it eagerly, caressing the hard spine gently as Naruto explained, "It's the latest in the series. The newest one in 3 years, Ika Ika Tactics. I didn't like it that much, but I think you'll get more enjoyment out of it than I did." A giggle reached Naruto's ears and he spun around, locking gazes with a pair of soft lavender eyes. In an instant, he had moved to their owner, Hyuga Hinata, and swept her into his arms, showering her face with kisses. She stopped him, and for a moment, he was afraid he had done something wrong. Then she pressed her lips to his in a mind-blowing kiss that sent his brain reeling. Her lips were incredibly soft and moist and he could distinctly taste cinnamon, too. It was a passionate kiss filled with love and happiness and a touch of sadness. She had obviously missed him greatly during his long time away. He hesitated slightly, but she didn't seem to notice. Should he tell her about Yugo? No, he decided firmly. Yugo was dead and gone and no good would come of mentioning what he had done for her, the physical comfort he had given. Yugo was gone and he would not stain her memory with hate, jealousy, and betrayal. What he had done for her and with her would remain secret. When his lungs began to burn, Naruto pulled back and gazed lovingly at Hinata's flushed face, smiling brightly. As she let him go, he placed one more kiss on her forehead and stepped back to admire her growth. And growth was indeed the correct term to apply to the changes Hinata had gone through. Though Naruto wasn't the tallest person in the world, he was about level with Kakashi and Hinata was only a few centimeters shorter than him, her eyes on level with his nose. She had filled out considerably and had smooth, womanly curves the like of which Anko would be jealous. Her breasts were bigger than he remembered, but they weren't obscenely large like Tsunade's, and her hair reached down to the middle of her back. Her attire had changed drastically, though he did note that it fit a taijutsu user like her much better than her old clothes did. The black top was sleeveless and stopped just a few centimeters above the top of her pants, revealing the skin-tight white undershirt that the black top hid. Her pants were black as well and clung to her legs like a second skin, cut off just slightly above her knees. He could see black gloves poking out of her pocket. "I missed you," he said softly. "You're my lifeline." A voice spoke up and Naruto could practically feel the sarcasm dripping from it. "Well, it certainly seems like Naruto's closer to reviving his clan than I am reviving mine. A blush lighting up his cheeks, Naruto turned and stuck his tongue out at Sasuke. At least I'm not some stuck-up idiot who can't get a clue. Whatever else the blonde planned on saying died in his throat as he caught sight of Sakura hanging off of Sasuke's arm, obviously just back from a date, and glaring at him. Sasuke merely tilted his head back and smirked victoriously, as if to say, "You were saying." Naruto simply waggled his eyebrows suggestively. "So," he smirked, "what have you two been up to for the past 2.5 years? Can I expect any godchildren?" A vicious blush lit up Sasuke and Sakura's faces, coloring their pale cheeks a violent red. Naruto resisted the urge to leer. "One point to him." "Oh," Hinata chimed in, "but how would that work? Isn't Sakura the current midwife at the hospital? She'd probably have quite a bit of difficulty delivering her own baby." Laughing as Sasuke and Sakura's blushes spread further and darkened, Naruto said, "Okay, that's enough. We've tortured them enough for now." Jiraiya, Tsunade walked up from behind her teammate, gazing fondly at the assembled group as they continued to bicker and joke. "Naruto's become more like you these past couple years, hasn't he?" Jiraiya refrained from answering, causing Tsunade to sigh. "The nostalgia ends here, though." Kakashi, the book in the copy ninja's hand snapped shut, catching the attention of the 5 teens, who looked at him, Team 7 in surprise. Suddenly serious, he said, "Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun, Sakura-san. From now on, you 3 will be coming with me on team-related missions. It's different than before, it's not teacher and pupil any longer. Starting today, we're considered equal. Naruto, you especially, considering you were promoted to Jonin last year." "Wait," Sasuke said, looking at Kakashi skeptically, "Naruto was promoted to Jonin? Isn't there some sort of exam or something for that?" "No," Kakashi said, shaking his head slightly, "Jonin are appointed, not selected from an exam. Generally, you have to do something to prove your Jonin level before you can earn the rank, but the Hokage can promote whoever he or she deems fit within reason. Speaking of which, Naruto, what did you do to get promoted?" Naruto grinned viciously, "I mastered the Rasengan." Kakashi's visible eye widened, "Did you?" Naruto nodded, answering the unfinished question, "Shape and elemental manipulation. It took me 3 months. Blinking, Kakashi cleared his throat noisily, "Right, like I said, you guys are considered equal from this point on." Kakashi reached into his pocket, pulling out 2 bells, "But first, well, I'm curious as to how you guys have come along. The rules are the same as before. If you don't come at me with the intent to kill, you won't be able to get the bells." Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke all smirked. The clearing was familiar, almost painfully so. The 3 training logs sat stock still amidst the short grass and the patches of bare dirt. The river was quiet, but could still be heard if one sat down and listened to it. It trickled along at its own pace, ignorant of the wildlife around it and uncaring of the 4 humans who stood a short distance away. "You guys know the rules," Kakashi repeated, standing with his book open once more. "You have until sunrise tomorrow to take these bells from me." A thought seemed to strike Kakashi. "Ah, that's right. This is the place where we, Team 7, first trained, isn't it? Ironic, huh?" The orange book snapped shut. "Well, then. Shall we begin?" "Oh, right, Naruto, no Bankai." Naruto's eyebrow twitched, which Kakashi seemed to notice. "You know as well as I that using that in this place will be too noticeable. Plus, well, I'd prefer not to explain why I'm in the hospital frozen solid." Naruto's lips suddenly quirked into a smirk. "You're not going to read the book this time, Kakashi-sensei?" "No, I get the feeling." Kakashi lifted his headband up, revealing the swirling red Sharingan in his left eye. "I'm going to have to take you 3 seriously." Coming from the legendary copy ninja, Sasuke said, smirking as his own eyes flashed red, "I suppose we should take that as a compliment." Sakura slipped on a pair of gloves. "You sure you can take this, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto drew his sword, point down, twirling it in his fingers until he had it in the correct grip. The metal of his Hitai-8 glinted from his right biceps, an eager grin twitching at the corner of his lips but not revealing itself. "Let's see just how far 2.5 years has allowed me to advance, Aibo." Kakashi closed his right eye and all was suddenly silent on the nearly abandoned training ground. Then, in a flash, Sasuke dug into his shuriken holster and let loose 4 of the tiny black throwing stars. Kakashi ducked, allowing the metal stars to zip over top of his head with several centimeters of clearance. Fluidly, he moved back up, twisting around and throwing out a backhand. With a clang, Naruto's shimmering silvery sword clashed with the thin dense plate on the back of Kakashi's black glove. Twisting once more, Kakashi suddenly moved away, releasing the muscles in his arm. Naruto stumbled forward slightly without the resistance and Kakashi leapt away as a tremor split the earth where he had just been standing. Growling lightly, Naruto swung his sword, releasing a beastly dragon that roared as it soared towards the gray-haired Jonin. Scowling in determination beneath his mask, Kakashi flipped through 3 hand seals and held his hand out as the dragon came closer. Lightning danced along his hand as the beast's nose came down, splattering on contact with the volatile electricity. Dipping his other hand into his kunai pouch, Kakashi spun around once more, blocking the slash of Sasuke's full-length katana. Taking advantage of Sasuke's occupied hands, Kakashi lashed out with a kick that the black-haired boy tried to dodge. It collided anyway, with enough force to knock the Uchiha back quite a distance, but it hadn't been as direct a hit as the Jonin had intended. Flipping backwards, Kakashi watched as Sakura stumbled over her own feet, overextending her punch because there wasn't a body there to receive it. Landing behind her, he hit her with a solid palm strike, which sent her into the armed Sasuke as he tried to renew his charge. Both lost their balance and fell onto the ground. Jumping up, Kakashi leapt over another dragon, using his chakra manipulation skills to jump off of the beast and dodge the bolt of white lightning that passed just barely under his feet. Reaching once more into his kunai pouch, he threw it with all his strength towards his blonde colleague, and Naruto had indeed earned the right to be a colleague. It was easily fended off. Kakashi ducked under 2 more shuriken, watching as Naruto effortlessly batted them away with his bare hands, no less. He lashed out with a sweeping backwards kick, which Sasuke jumped over and Sakura blocked. Twisting, he brought his other foot slamming into her shoulder, sending her back several meters. Standing back up, he dropped his shoulder and let Sasuke's sword fly past his face. Grabbing the boy's exposed wrist, he threw the Uchiha across the clearing and into a tree. Twisting again, he brought his hand up, Naruto's blade scraping against the metal of the plated glove. Kakashi's eyes went wide, however, when a glowing palm was held in front of his face. Hado no Sanjusen, Naruto said calmly, Sokatsui. There was an explosion of blue fire, sending several wooden chunks sprawling all over the clearing. They stopped moving after rolling several times, smoking lightly from the heat and power used to splinter the wooden log. Naruto felt his lips twitch in eagerness and no small amount of pride. Turning around, Naruto smirked at Kakashi, who was staring at him seriously, though his posture was relaxed. Holding his sword up, Naruto spoke 4 words that sent a chill down Kakashi's spine, Ten wo Tojiro, Hyorinmaru. Rule the heavens, ice ring. As soon as the words left his lips, the sword in his hands transformed. The blade was thin and long, but wider than a normal tsurugi. The blade itself looked to be made of blue crystal, but it was obviously densely packed ice, which, Kakashi was sure, was hard as diamond. It was straight and double-edged, glistening in the midday sun. The hilt had changed as well, from a golden hand guard to 2 sapphire prongs shaped vaguely reminiscent of broken glass. The hilt itself was also crystalline and smooth, colored a mesmerizing blue not unlike Naruto's eyes. There was an aura about the entire thing, an aura that spoke of power, Hyôrinmaru Nishiki. Hyôrinmaru second style, shifting his grip, Naruto jabbed his sword into the ground. Immediately, spikes of hard ice jutted out of the ground, continuing to pop up at a rapid and dangerous pace in a straight row as they headed for the silver-haired Jonin. Kakashi, recognizing the danger, leapt up and over his blonde comrade, watching as the spikes pierced through a tree and immediately froze it. His escape was cut short as Naruto tore off one of the prongs on his hilt and it lengthened into a spike that he then threw. Taking a deep breath, Kakashi flashed through hand seals and blew out a large fireball into the air, propelling him out of the spike's path and towards the ground. He flipped in midair and landed with a harsh thud that sent pain lancing up his legs. As Kakashi leaned backwards to avoid the vicious stab Naruto had aimed at his head, he became alarmed at the sound of fabric being cut by something very sharp, something he would have missed were he anyone else. He looked down at his waist, but was too late to stop Sakura from grabbing the 2 bells that Sasuke had cut free. And then, Kakashi laughed, okay, I lost. You guys deserve this. Standing straight as Naruto sheathed his sword, Kakashi reached into his kunai pouch and grabbed something. Sakura and Naruto moved a bit closer to get a better look, but Sasuke was being his usual self and only peering out of the corner of his eye. Opening his palm, Kakashi revealed 3 perfectly shaped gems. These, he explained as he handed one to each of his students, are gems mined and cut specifically for ninja. Look at the patterns they give off when they reflect light and tell me what you see. I see a hexagon, Naruto said, squinting slightly as he examined the oval-shaped, sapphire blue gem in his hand. I see a pentagon, Sasuke said tonelessly, looking at his gem dispassionately. Me too, Sakura told them, peering at her gem like it was a crystal ball. Naruto, Jiraiya told you how chakra paper is made, right? Kakashi asked. Naruto nodded. These gems are made essentially the same way. However, because they are non-living, they retain the energy they absorb instead of using it and, eventually, gain special abilities. The type and quality of the gem determines what these abilities are. These particular gemstones are called protect gems, which are made from sapphires, and amplify your skin to make it harder to damage. In other words, these gems protect you from other elemental jutsu. In particular, the ones that cause damage to the skin and surface of the body. Fire jutsu are a good example. They cannot, however, protect you from the paralyzing effects of lightning chakra. The quality of the gem determines its strength, and quality can be observed by how it reflects light. An S-class stone has a hexagon pattern, an A-class stone has a star pattern, a Class B stone has a pentagonal pattern, and so on and so forth. S-class stones, I've heard, can negate all elemental jutsu C rank and below. Wicked, Naruto whispered. So how do they work? Simple, Kakashi I smiled, unzipping his vest a little to show a hexagon-patterned gem hanging around his neck. You have to wear them. Sasuke looked appalled at the idea, but Naruto ignored him and continued to ask questions. So every ninja has one of these stones? No, Kakashi shook his head. They're rare and abundant at the same time. Out of all the elemental countries, chakra gems can only be found in the land of earth and, by default, Iwagakure, the land of wind and Sunagakure, and the land of fire and Konoha. Different gems are found in different countries, too. As I understand it, Iwagakure has more spirit gems, which allows them to more easily manipulate chakra and the elements, earth in particular. We have more protect gems and Suna has more power gems. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura interrupted, I don't understand. How can they be rare and abundant at the same time? They're rare, in that they can only be found in those 3 countries, Kakashi explained. However, they're abundant in that Konoha mines enough of them to supply to about half of the ninja on the active duty roster. They're important enough, though, that only Jonin are issued them and can decide to give them to Chunin and below. Why us, then? Sasuke asked. Why are we being given these gems if they're so precious? Orders, Kakashi shrugged. Tsunade told me that, if you guys could take the bells, you were skilled enough to merit having one. Naruto gets the S-class one because he's earned Jonin and you two are still Chunin. Looking up at the sun, Kakashi suddenly stood straight and stretched slightly, saying, right. Well, I've got to report to Tsunade, so I'll see you guys later. He disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto's stomach rumbled. Ah, man, I'm hungry. You two have fun. I'm going to find Hinata-chan and grab a bite to eat. He leapt towards the trees and looked ready to take off, but paused, as thinking about something. He turned slightly and grinned. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. I'm too young to be a godfather. As Sakura and Sasuke blushed furiously, he cackled and disappeared into the foliage, Sakura's outraged yell echoing after him. The streets seemed particularly busy as Naruto walked down them, Hinata on his right. People were crowded on the dirt roads, some walking in one direction, others walking in the opposite direction. Some were even foolish enough to carry large stacks of objects that they, at best, could barely see over. Those people seemed unnaturally lucky, as none of them had managed to drop their piles, whether it was merchandise for a store or stuff they had bought. Some of the people greeted the trio brightly, others even went so far as to address the blonde as Naruto-sama, or Naruto Denka. Hinata, of course, received much the same treatment. Very few of the many villagers scowled at him or scorned him, and even those that did quailed under Hinata's glare. So, you up for some ikirakus? He asked his companion with a charming smile. It's been a while since we've gone there together. I'm pretty sure Ayami's in tears, and Tsukiji-san is probably broke without their best customer. Hinata giggled. Sure, but, as a proper gentleman, you have to pay for everything. As Naruto's smile drooped slightly in a mock pout, Hinata added, it's only proper that the man pay for the meal on a date, Naruto-kun. That means that you have to cater to my appetite. Giving an exaggerated sigh, Naruto slung his arms over her shoulders and said, how can I ever say, no, to the most beautiful girl in the village? I swear, the odds are stacked against me. Does a guy ever win an argument against a woman? If you truly have to ask that, then you haven't grown nearly as much as I've heard, a familiar lazy voice said. Naruto looked up to see Shikamaru, the ever-volatile Temari walking next to him with her large fan strapped to her back. Shikamaru smirked. For such a clueless and oblivious guy, it's ironic that you managed to snag one of the most eligible bachelorettes in the country. Naruto's lips twitched into a smirk as well, his hands moving downwards to wrap around Hinata's waist. I'm sure I have no idea what you're talking about. Shikamaru chuckled. Right. Looking around dramatically, the blonde sage whispered, so, are you guys on a date, too? Why, you're joking. Temari sputtered, her cheeks stained red. Why would I go out with such a... There's a Chunin exam, soon. I'm just going back and forth between Konoha and Suna for meetings. And it's troublesome, but I've become an examiner, Shikamaru said dully, so I was told to go and see off the messengers from Hidden Sand. A Chunin exam? Naruto asked. He smiled fondly. That sure brings back memories. Hinata leaned up and pecked the blonde on the cheek, it certainly does. Squeezing her hip lightly, Naruto turned his attention back to the lazy ninja. So, how far has everyone else come? Sasuke and Sakura are Chunin, but I haven't heard how far everyone else got. Well, everyone from our class has made Chunin, Shikamaru told him. Plus, Hyuga Neji from the class above us, Kankuro from the sand, and Temari here have already made Jonin. And so have you, from what I've heard. I'd ask how you managed to do something like that, but sitting here and listening to you explain it would be far too troublesome. Wait, Naruto said, then, what happened to Gaara? Shikamaru's lips curled into a smirk, you're going to have trouble believing this, but, Naruto's mind stopped working for a second, you're kidding. Gaara's the case cage, yep, the lazy Chunin said, and well liked, from what I understand. The large, spacious hall was quiet and almost empty. Team 7 stood awaiting a mission to be assigned, Tsunade rustling through each scroll and trying to find one that suited such high skill level. Naruto was fidgeting slightly, his black-gloved right hand clenching and unclenching, as if eager to wield a sword. Sasuke stood impassively, his arms folded over his chest and his eyes dull and dispassionate. Sakura was staring off into space, her mind wandering to other things and places in her boredom. Kakashi was, predictably, at least his students thought so, reading his oh-so-important little orange book, not letting on that he was alert and focused. There was a series of pounding footsteps as well as several sharp pants as a pair of heavy oak doors on the side of the room burst open, a haggard woman gasping for breath as she shouted out to the entire group, Tsunade-sama. It's bad. An organization called Akatsuki has kidnapped Tsunagaku's Kasecage-sama. Tsunade sighed, suddenly turning deadly serious. Team 7, you have a new mission. You are to leave and go immediately to the Hidden Sand Village, find out what the situation is, and then relay it back to here. After that, you are to follow the Sand's instructions and back them up on their endeavor. She snapped her fingers and a single Anbu was suddenly in the room, kneeling to her with his head bowed in submission. Not turning the slightest, Tsunade addressed him, Itachi, as a former member of Akatsuki, you know their moves and tactics best. Get dressed back in your normal wear and meet Team 7 at the gates. Your mission is the same as theirs. Removing his mask, Itachi nodded dutifully, Hi, Hokage-sama. Barely 15 minutes later found the whole group standing at the gate, packs slung over their backs as they turned around to address the blonde Hokage. Naruto saluted, tucking two necklaces into his sleeveless, zippered, turtleneck vest, one the Shadai's necklace, and the other a thin cord with a blue gem hanging from it. Iruka smiled, do your best. Yo, everyone spun around to see Jiraiya standing in the path. Off on a mission, eh, Naruto? Naruto nodded firmly, his face etched with unwavering determination. Jiraiya acknowledged his silent answer absently, more importantly, Tsunade, something terrible has happened. The Sand's case cage, I know, Tsunade said gravely. She gestured to the group of 5. That's where I'm sending this motley crew. I got the message not too long ago. Jiraiya sighed, Naruto, be careful when it comes to the Akatsuki. I know you can handle yourself well enough, you didn't make Jonin for nothing, but 9-on-1 isn't very good odds. Naruto's eyes were cold and icy, the blonde's version of blazing anger, they're after me for whatever reasons they have. This time, I'm going after them. Jiraiya sighed again, I know, Naruto, just, make me a promise. Promise me that you won't use that jutsu unless you don't have anything else you can do. I know you can do it, but you've nowhere near mastered it, especially with the additions you've made. The chakra consumption that it takes from you is only good for 3 shots. Naruto looked down for a moment, then stared Jiraiya square in the eye, I promise. I don't like it, but I promise. Nodding, the white-haired man turned to one of the dark-haired ninja, Itachi. Make sure Naruto sticks to his promise. The last thing we need is for him to use it and for Hidden Stone to find out. Itachi's face was grim, I understand. Chiyo frowned, gazing sadly down at the young boy before her. Poison is my specialty, but even I don't know this one. Sasori has grown quite a lot. What should we do? Baki asked her. The only one who has more knowledge of neutralizing poisons than me is the slug Sennin of Konoha, Tsunade Hime, Chiyo admitted. During the Great War, she could analyze my poisons and fix up an antidote almost instantly. That was rather embarrassing for me. All you can do is call her and ask her to analyze him. You're allied to Konoha now, aren't you? Yes, but, Tsunade Hime is Hokage now, which means that she can't easily leave her village, can she? Baki said, even so, even if she comes here herself, it takes 3 whole days to reach the hidden sand village from Konoha. But in that case, we don't have the time to wait that long. He sighed, for now, we have sent a request to Konoha for a specialist team. It's taking all of our strength just to wait for them to arrive. HMPH, Chiyo scoffed, stop relying on other people. You're so dependent on your alliances with other countries, you've become careless in your training, and this is what becomes of it. Becoming dependent, Baki muttered, that is by no means what we intended to do. Why are you dependent and relying on Konoha? Because you didn't put advancement of your own village's power as your first priority. Chiyo said heatedly, they are them, we are us. Friendly alliances are just a fabrication. During times like these, all they can do is send us useless underlings. The main point is that, I can't stand that slug woman. Konkuro, a female voice cried. 6 people rushed into the room. 2 blondes, 1 female, 1 male, 2 raven-haired boys, who just had to be brothers, a pink-haired girl, and 1 tall, masked, gray-haired man. Upon seeing the gray-haired man, the last to enter the room, Chiyo's eyes went wide and her mouth curled into a scowl. The white fang of Konoha, she snarled. The tall Jonin only had a moment to register her words before she leapt at him with a furious punch. The blonde boy, however, had already moved before she could hit him and grabbed both of her fists. With a vicious scowl, he let go of her left hand and moved past her guard as she overextended, landing a harsh palm strike just beneath her collarbone. What the hell are you thinking? He yelled, attacking Kakashi-sensei out of the blue. I remember the time, she said darkly, Konoha's white fang, my son's hated enemy, and today, I will get revenge for him. Kakashi waved his hands, wait a minute. I'm not, there's no use arguing, Chiyo shouted angrily. An old man stepped in front of her, holding his arm out to stop her from dashing forward. Sister, take a look. There's a strong resemblance, but he isn't Konoha's white fang. Chiyo arched an eyebrow in confusion, staring at Kakashi, then broke out in loud cackles, no way. I knew that, I was just pretending to be stupid. More importantly, the pink-haired Sakura said, Konkuro-san needs to be taken care of quickly. Hands glowing with green chakra, Sakura pressed one against his flesh and stretched the other away from his stomach, taking with it globs of dark liquid. She smiled, the dark substance floating above her palm, got it. The glow faded, I don't think there's any need to worry anymore. I've removed the poison directly. Now, I have to make an antidote for the little bit left in his body. We can't relax yet, please gather what I ask for. You're a lot like that slug woman, Chiyo said quietly. That a girl like you would come, that's because Tsunade-sama is my teacher, Sakura said brightly. And she said that I should come here. Sister, the old man said, time really is slowly flowing by, we have to get moving, though, Naruto said firmly. Chiyo grabbed Sakura by the arm and led her out the door, presumably to find herbs and such. Naruto noted it absently. As soon as Sakura is done, we need to go after Gaara and the Akatsuki. Hold on a moment, Naruto-kun, Itachi said. The gray-haired Jonin nodded gratefully. We still have a few things that we need to do before we follow after the Akatsuki. We can't just go about, blindly searching for any trace of our enemy. We need to gather a little bit of information, first. The copy Ning gave Itachi a thankful look. Naruto was truly a good shinobi, strong and clever, capable of feats of power that sometimes left Kakashi wide-eyed. When it came to his friends, however, nothing was more important than their safety. The blonde would jump into the pits of hell to pull them back, if need be. Do you know where they might have gone? Sasuke asked Itachi. The older Uchiha shook his head. There are several different bases they could have fled to. Trusting me to find them would not be a good idea, as I have no clue where to start looking. Our best bet is to track their trail and follow them. If it was indeed Deidara and Sasori, they will be eager to stay behind and engage us. Kakashi turned to Baki. Excuse me, what happened to the pursuit of the Akatsuki after Kankuro-kun's fight? Kankuro went alone, Baki informed him. There were no others. Kakashi frowned. Then we've completely lost them. Baki looked down. Yes, we have. Then, the gray-haired man began. Could you lead me to where he fought? The site of his battle. Though I might not look it, I'm an expert in pursuit and tracking. If even the smallest trace of their scent was left behind, that's not necessary. Kankuro sat up weakly. There are two of them. One abducted Gaara, so you should follow Gaara's scent. Even assuming they split up, the second one caught a bit of clothing on Karasu's hand. Making a success from a failure, Kakashi murmured, you are indeed a shinobi of the sand. Kankuro, Chio was back. Are you absolutely sure that one of the men you followed was Sasori? Kankuro looked down. Yeah. He was Akasuna no Sasori all right. He said so himself. The door opened and Sakura walked back in, holding a teapot on a small tray. Setting it down on a stone nightstand, she poured the strange substance inside it into a teacup, then handed it to Kankuro, saying, here. Drink it all up. He gulped it down quickly, shuddering at the taste as Sakura continued, you should be fine now. Until the paralysis ends, however, you shouldn't be moving. You need to get some sleep. Let's go, now, Naruto said firmly. We need to get a move on. Sakura glared at him and picked up her backpack. Sasuke squashed the glare with his own words, the idiot's right. Nothing can be accomplished simply by sitting around here and hoping for the best. Let's go. They're right, Itachi threw in. The Akatsuki will take what they want from Kazekage-sama and then throw him away. The extraction process takes a while, but that doesn't buy us nearly enough time to sit around and discuss everything. We need to get going. The entire group nodded at that and turned to leave. Uzumaki, no Namikaze Naruto, Kankuro's voice stopped the blonde in his tracks. Please, save my brother. There was a pause, a dark, dramatic pause, at those words. The temperature in the room, normally very warm or at least temperate because of the desert, suddenly dropped down to an almost impossible low. Cold fury was palpable, and Kankuro could taste his own fear in the thick air. Konoha's Ryujin is not someone to be merciful against his most hated enemies, Naruto said without turning, his voice icy. There was a presence to him, something that Kankuro decided he could have gone his entire life without feeling and be the happiest man on the planet. I will bring Gaara back. And I will kill the men who took him. The room temperature took a steep nosedive, that's a promise. The ground was soaked as they came upon the Akatsuki's mysterious cave, the water easily knee-deep at the very least. The group of 6, however, landed atop the water and stood there quite easily. Hatake Kakashi, Namikaze Naruto, Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, Uchiha Itachi, and the old woman, Chio. Team Guy was already standing in front of the cave, breaking their gazes from the large stone boulder that guarded the entrance. Tenten's face took on a brief expression of longing at the sight of Naruto, but as she caught the look on his face, worry glanced over her features. The blonde was scowling darkly, his hand clenching anxiously. His rage and killing intent was barely restrained and his pupils had already become slits. Guy smirked in a friendly manner, "You're late, Kakashi." "Well," Kakashi replied smoothly, "we ran into a bit of trouble on the way." Itachi said his name was Hidan. "Naruto-kun," Lee said excitedly. "Sakura-san." "Right," Guy said confidently. He turned to the large boulder. "Let's do it." Kakashi. They never had the chance to even try, however, before the sudden feeling of paralysis flooded their limbs. It wasn't Kaneshibari no Jutsu, it was far too potent to be something so easily broken out of. No, this feeling was that of a powerful beast, a dragon the likes of which could cleave steel with his teeth. He's dead, Naruto said, exhaling shakily. The entire group had frozen. His spiritual pressure just vanished. There are still some reishi lingering about, but that's all it is. Gaara's dead. His fists clenched and the sky darkened. I won't let them, I won't let them get away with this. His hands were a blur, moving so fast that only Itachi could see which seals he was using. There was a crack like thunder as he finished and several of the shinobi present cringed as the blonde's bones popped and his muscles tore, becoming denser, stronger beneath his skin. A single black feathered wing bloomed from his right shoulder, folded against his body. Something new happened, however, and his sunny blonde hair paled into bright silver, retaining its spikiness. The transformation complete, Naruto looked down at his hand, his voice deep, smooth, and seductive as he spoke, 60%. He lifted cyan eyes with slit pupils to glare at the rock before him, a 5-seal barrier. This won't stop me. He drew his sword and Kakashi watched as it became the strange ice sword again with the simple verbal command of Hyorinmaru Nishiki. With a dangerous look on his face, Naruto slashed at the boulder once, his blade moving in a diagonal arc. There were a few seconds of silence as everyone waited for something to happen, then the paper seal split in half and fell to the ground, followed a mere second later by a bisected boulder. Everyone's eyes were wide as the darkness of the cave glared at them. Kakashi leaned over to Itachi. Is this the jutsu? No, Itachi shook his head, but I don't think Jiraiya-sama knew it would go this far. As sunlight slowly revealed the large cave, two vaguely human-sized figures could be seen in the dark, one sitting and one hunched over. A third figure lay on the ground, sat upon by the first man and motionless. A large bird stood a few meters away from the mismatched trio, staring at the Konoha group with wide, unnatural eyes. Well then, the first man said, his blonde hair obscuring his left eye, which one of you is the Jinchuriki, I wonder? So you are the Akatsuki? Naruto raised his hand and dark clouds formed, blocking out the sun. It wasn't a question. Not bad, for trash. I'll take this one, the hunched man said. After all, no, Naruto said calmly. His cyan eyes were blazing with hatred and power. You're not the one I want. I'll get to you soon enough. No, I want the blonde one. I can smell it in the air, you're the one that took Gaara. The blonde grinned, yeah. So, the blonde began to move, but before he could so much as touch the clay bird beside him, Naruto had vanished, reappearing with his sword pierced through the unnatural avian. In an instant, the entire creature had frozen over. Naruto's lips twitched as he turned. Now, we can't have you escaping, can we? Leaping forward, Naruto spun around and launched a vertical kick that the blonde Deidara easily blocked. Naruto arched an eyebrow. Well, it seems you do indeed have some sort of skill. Using the block as leverage, Naruto jumped over top of Deidara's head and kicked him in the back of the skull with his heel, knocking the effeminate man to the ground with a loud thud. Wheeling around quickly, he brought up his foot and slammed it down onto the back of Deidara's hand with a loud crunch. Or he would have, if the blonde had still been there. A clay bird came soaring towards him, but all Naruto did was hold out his palm and whisper 3 words. A ball of blue fire shot forward, colliding with the bird midway and exploding in a shower of thick dirt. Fluidly, his arm moved and his sword cut through air, slicing a kunai in half as well. Naruto swung, releasing a giant blue dragon of water at his enemy. Deidara leapt up over the beast as it came towards him, splashing violently against the floor of the cave and coating the dirt in water and ice. He wasn't done, however, and a spike of ice leapt from the teen's hand, cutting through the air. Surprised and caught off guard by the jagged spike of frozen liquid, Deidara didn't dodge fast enough to escape its full wrath. A thin line cut itself on his left cheek, drawing several small globs of red blood. Scowling for the first time during the entire battle, the blonde reached up with his hand and wiped the blood away furiously. Sensei, Sakura whispered quietly, eyes wide, why is Naruto like this? It's the jutsu, Itachi explained before Kakashi could say anything. Naruto-kun has an inner beast, of sorts, that has nothing to do with the Kyubi no Yuko. By drawing from this beast's energy, which is separate from his own, Naruto-kun can do the things we know as Shikai and Bankai. However, Kakashi broke in, continuing where Itachi left off. There is also a style of jutsu called Sage Jutsu, which involved taking chakra in from the environment, called nature chakra, and using that to fuel techniques. Only those who have trained with the toads can accurately accomplish this. Naruto, however, Itachi said, has found a way around that limitation. Instead of drawing on nature chakra like Jiraiya-sama, Naruto draws on the energy from his inner beast. By doing so, his form changes and shifts, becoming more and more draconic in nature. The slit pupils and silver hair are the most prime examples. So Naruto acts this way because of the technique he used earlier. Sasuke asked disbelievingly. To put it simply, yes, Kakashi replied. To be more accurate, no. It is said that all dragons have 100 scales dedicated to good and evil. 75 of those scales are devoted to good, 25 devoted to evil. While most dragons go through life without being affected by the evil, that evil is strong enough that you don't want to anger a dragon. To cut this entire explanation down to its root meaning, Itachi said, this jutsu, while powerful, brings out the darkness in Naruto-kun's own heart. At 50%, he fights to enjoy the battle. At 60%, he likes to toy with his foes. We never want to see the full 100%. Naruto wasted no time in attacking once more, driving his sword as hard as he possibly could through the man's black-cloaked torso. Ice began to spread from the wound, creeping up over the blonde's body at a frightening rate. At the last second, however, his lips curled into a smirk and his body expanded and exploded. Naruto reappeared several meters away, unharmed without a single hair or thread out of place. A scowl was planted firmly on his face, his cyan eyes scanning the cave for a sign of the blonde menace who he hated with a passion. A growl tumbled past his lips before he could stop it as a large bird swooped out of the cavern, swallowing Gaara. An instant later, Naruto had flown after it, rushing to catch up to the large yellow beast. Shaken from the stupor that had taken hold of her during the battle and Kakashi and Itachi's explanation, Tenten followed after, calling out his name as she spoke her sword's command phrase. As Naruto followed Deidara, hopping from tree to tree, his enemy left no openings. There was no chance for attack, no opportunity to strike and knock the large avian made of clay out of the air. Tenten trailed behind him, struggling to keep up with his inhuman pace and begging him to wait for her. But Naruto could hear nothing, save for the harsh sound of the wind blowing past his ears. Gaara was dead, dead, he wasn't coming back. Gaara was dead and it was the fault of this stupid blonde man called Deidara. But Akatsuki hadn't counted on something when they'd targeted the redhead. They hadn't counted on the strength of Naruto's ire. And that simple, small miscalculation would be their downfall, the cause of their defeat. Naruto would make sure of it. Glaring, the teen shinobi known as Ryujin swung his sword, releasing a large blue dragon that soared toward Deidara with a silent roar. Alarmed at the visage of the beast, the blonde's eye widened considerably and he leapt from the bird, watching as the dragon tore his perfect creation into bits. Naruto leapt up and grabbed the avian's falling beak, which contained Gaara, falling and landing softly on a branch in the middle of the forest. Unfortunately for Deidara, he wasn't prepared for the second Naruto that appeared behind him, the only warning a soft swish and the sound of his sword slicing through air. Deidara turned and tried to dodge, but he wasn't fast enough to escape the wrath of Naruto's crystalline blade and his right arm was severed just below the shoulder. Flipping away from Naruto, Deidara landed unsteadily on a tree branch, scowling and glaring at his enemy. He was fortunate that ice had started to consume him from where his arm had been cut off. If it hadn't, he would have quickly bled to death and the only one who could have saved him would be less than inclined to do so. This boy, he was a lot stronger than the Akatsuki had given him credit for. Pain had insisted that, no matter how important to their plans he was, the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yuko wasn't any real threat to them. He had gone to train with Jiraiya for a few years, but what could a few years do against a couple decades? Namikaze Naruto, Pain assured them, was no real threat. But now, even though he had been at such a disadvantage, Deidara had been defeated. Both of his arms were gone, each taken by a Jinchuriki. The only backup he could expect was, most likely, still in battle with Itachi and the others. And, no offense to Sasori, Deidara didn't think that the puppet master could beat the infamous Uchiha Itachi. You didn't earn a nickname like, the Phoenix, for nothing. If he was honest with himself, Deidara didn't really think he would have won even if he had both arms. Namikaze Naruto was known for his technique called Bankai. Whenever he was serious, he would use it and crush whoever stood in his way. Not once, however, had Deidara heard the word leave the boy's lips. That meant that there was still a lot of power waiting to be unleashed. Physically, Deidara was one of the weakest members of his organization. Next to Pain, Sasori, Hidan, Kakuzu, Konan, and Zetsu, and he didn't really know how strong Zetsu was. He was the slowest and the weakest. He made up for it with his explosives and his cunning and his ability to infiltrate even the tightest of security. In espionage, he reigned supreme, and his explosives were more than capable of defeating any enemy who came his way. Against his allies, however, he was incapable of winning. Sasori had far too many puppets for Deidara to safely get in a decisive blow. Hidan was pretty much immortal, so any attack aimed at him would be useless. The only thing he would get was an angry glare and, perhaps, a quick but painful disembowelment. Kakuzu had those multiple hearts to support him, and destroying all of them before he got you was a very difficult task. With a little bit of planning and a little surprise attack, Kakuzu would be down for the count. Unfortunately, Kakuzu was simply too resistant to defeat so easily. The only thing he really had over the bounty hunter was seniority. Konan was untouchable. No one dared approach her, not unless it involved strictly business. Pain was the only one who interacted freely with his second-in-command, and he was strict about what kind of contact the others could have with her. Pain was the only member that Deidara was sure could kill him effortlessly. With a slash of his sword, Naruto's godly visage melted away into his normal appearance, a scowl planted firmly on his face. Deidara felt a bit of hope flare up inside his chest, but it was immediately extinguished when the blonde shinobi pointed his katana forward and intoned but a single word, Bankai. Ice spread over him, forming wings, a tail, a dragon head-shaped gauntlet, clawed feet, and 4 flowers with 4 petals each. In that instant, Deidara knew that he wouldn't be walking away from this one. His death was almost assured and there was nothing he could possibly do to stop it. As Naruto raised his hand up to point at Deidara, the air between them solidified into tiny little particles of ice that looked like fog and mist. The light glinted off of several of these particles, reflecting into Deidara's eyes, who realized that these bits of ice were incredibly dense and sharp. Kongo Hikori, was all Naruto said. Diamond dust. With a motion of his hand, the small ice particles leapt forward, spearing Deidara through all parts of his body, save his chest, neck, and head. He stood straight for a moment, incapable of collapsing, then fell backwards with a heavy thump, blood leaking from thousands of wounds on his body not much larger than a pinprick. He could not move. Muscles, ligaments, bones, all had been torn to shreds, leaving him nothing but a gasping, pain-filled corpse. Grabbing the blonde's coat, Naruto pushed Deidara against the bark, hissing, "Do you know why you lost? You underestimated me, and now, you'll pay the price for all you've done. You'll pay for killing Gaara, for all you've done to the sand, for every sin you've ever committed, and I'll be eager to watch your trip to hell." With his piece said and nothing more he wanted to express to the missing ninja, Naruto stabbed his sword through the blonde's heart, watching as fear and pain bloomed on his face. Holding back a snarl, Naruto whispered, "Don't worry, it's fatal." The moment Deidara took his last breath, Naruto felt his anger dissolve into pain and emptiness as his Bankai vanished. Gaara was gone. One of the few people who could understand his pain was gone, and he wasn't coming back. Killing Deidara hadn't brought Gaara back. It hadn't made the pain go away. A pair of warm arms wrapped around his shoulders, pulling him into a warm embrace. A small smile pulled at Naruto's lips and he leaned backwards into Tenten's awaiting arms, enjoying the warmth and comfort of her hug. She was his friend, and that was what he needed right then. A noise pulled him back to earth, however, and the situation was refreshed as he caught sight of the clone he had made earlier. Gaara was gone. Sasori was dead. His body, nothing more than a puppet following his commands flawlessly, was cracked and burnt, as though it had been struck by lightning. The ground was split and had experienced a great upheaval, and the cave in which that battle had taken place was all but gone. The remains of several puppets littered the brown earth. Sasuke smirked, eyes dancing victoriously. He was no match for Murakumo and me. "You think we should trust him, though?" Sakura asked unsurely. "About the bridge, I mean. Tenchi Bridge in Grass Country," Itachi recited, staring at Sasori's smoking corpse, 10 days from now at noon. "I'd Heard that he had a subordinate in Orochimaru's camp, but I didn't think he'd manage such a thing. Orochimaru may not be the strongest of ninja out there, but he is most certainly one of the cleverer ones. We have no other choice but to trust him, Neji cut in. This is the best and most solid lead we've had on Orochimaru for years. Even if it turns out to be a trap, the chance that we can take down Orochimaru is too good to pass up. I'm sure Hokage-sama will agree with me. We must not ignore this. Sakura. Two voices cried. The entire group turned around to see Tenten and Naruto land, holding a motionless Gaara in between them. They set him down on a smooth section of dirt, backing up as Sakura rushed forward and dropped to her knees beside the unmoving redhead. She laid her hands on his chest, then paused. With sad eyes, she looked up at Naruto and shook her head. Naruto's brow furrowed, his teeth grinding together. Why was Gaara, always Gaara, to die like this? His fist clenched. He's the Cage. He didn't become Cage just to relax, Chiyo said calmly. Namikaze Naruto. Naruto spun around, unshed tears glistening in his eyes. Shut up. If the hidden sand hadn't sealed that crazy monster in Gaara, then nothing like this would have happened in the first place. Gaara didn't ask for this. He didn't tell you to seal such a beast inside his body. Jinchuriki, it's just a word that people like you made up. It's a label that glorifies our lives. Droplets of water finally trickled down his cheeks. I couldn't save the old man and I couldn't save Gaara. I trained and trained for 3 years, day and night, until I dropped. I trained until my hands bled and my muscles snapped. But nothing's changed. I can't save those who matter to me. Face twisted into a determined frown, Chiyo strode forward purposefully, kneeling down next to Gaara and pressing her hands against his chest. Her hands glowed with chakra, forming a bright orb that consumed her arms from the elbow down. The grass around her rippled and swayed. Chiyo-sama, Sakura gasped. That jutsu is, what are you trying to do now? Naruto asked stubbornly, refusing to get his hopes up. The aura to that chakra had a familiar feel. Could it be? That's, Guy muttered. Yes, Kakashi confirmed. What the hell are you doing? Naruto demanded. Hope was blossoming in his chest, but he wouldn't allow it to grow so long as it could still be dashed in the next few moments. Sakura looked over at him. She's bringing Gaara back. Naruto's heart started to beat loudly in his chest. Is she, really? Sakura's face was firm and grim. This jutsu is Chiyo-sama's alone. Goo. Chiyo flinched. The glow weakened. Damn. Not enough chakra. You can. Naruto knelt down on the other side of Gaara's body. Use my chakra. Put your hands on top of mine, she said, and Naruto did so. A thin smile appeared on her lips. I'm glad that someone like you exists in this world of shinobi that we old people created. In the past, I made so many mistakes. But now, at the very end, I am able to do what is right. She looked up at him. Konoha and Suna, their futures are differing from our pasts. That mysterious power of yours that Kakashi spoke of, that may just change the future. Become a Hokage like none before you. Her eyes softened. Naruto, a request from an old hag. You are the only one who knows Gaara's pain, and Gaara is the only one who knows your pain. So, help him out. All Gaara knew was emptiness. He was alone in a world of nothing and his body refused to move. A voice called his name, a familiar voice, but he could not place a face or name to the voice. Warmth blossomed on his shoulder, a strong hand gripping him tightly and nudging him gently. Gaara, the voice called. Gaara. Gaara's eyes felt heavy and the ground felt hard and cold. Gaara. At once, his eyes snapped open and he could place a name to that voice. He looked up at the blonde who held him up by the shoulder, supporting him in his motionless body. He craned his neck and whispered the name, Naruto. His eyes widened as he caught sight of his surroundings. Hundreds of ninja stood, as if waiting for him to awake from his unnatural sleep. Each one was smiling, and as he sat up, several started to cheer for his return. Confusion and surprise filled his being, so he turned to look at his blonde friend once more. Naruto smiled, speaking softly, they all came here, Gaara. Everyone came running, just to save you. You put us through a lot. A ghost of a smile lit up Gaara's face. Thank you, Naruto. The sun hung high in the midday sky, casting a bright glow over the lush forests and the shining river hidden within the chasm. A sturdy wooden bridge closed the gap between the two sides, arching up slightly and protected by a thick roof. A figure stood stoically atop its pale planks, his face and all distinguishing features hidden by a cloak. Another figure suddenly appeared as well, all but his eyes hidden from the world. He wore a dark piece of cloth over his nose and mouth and a conical bamboo hat on his head. Thin strips of paper fell from the hat to obscure the sides of his head. His hunched-over body was hidden within a black cloak decorated with blood-red clouds. "It's been a long time, Sasori-sama," the first figure stated plainly, reaching for the hood of his cloak. He pulled it down, revealing a stoic face with long, silvery hair pulled into a ponytail at the base of his neck. His dark eyes, framed by a pair of glasses, betrayed nothing of his emotions. About 5 years, Naruto, hidden away behind the cover of a large rock, felt his eyes go wide and a lump form in his throat. Anger leapt unbidden to forefront of his mind, overwhelming the shock that had initially flooded him. His hand clenched into a fist so tightly that his knuckles turned white and shook. "It can't be," he whispered almost inaudibly. "I killed him." A hand on his shoulder drove his attention over to Kakashi, who nodded reassuringly and gave him a sharp, light squeeze. A wave of gratitude washed through him, but the anger still simmered beneath the surface. How had Kabuto survived? The attack Naruto had used on him a year prior should have killed him. Followed, the fake Sasori asked with a grunt. "Not an issue," Kabuto said calmly. "How's the situation?" "A weird feeling still remains from the time I remembered who I was, unsealed by Sasori-sama's technique," Kabuto said. "My head is still a bit heavy. I have a few questions," Sasori said with a growl. "We have very little time, please make it quick," Kabuto said, a hint of worry in his voice. "I'm risking my life just by coming here and away from Orochimaru-sama's eye." "Give me information on the emplacement of his hideout," Sasori said firmly. "There are many hideouts," Kabuto said. "To keep his whereabouts from being discovered, he's moving from place to place by 1-week units. Of course, these are also in countries away from the hidden sound. Orochimaru-sama's spies are given intricate directions. His means of travel are also various and can't be told either. He's now hiding in a hideout in a small island of the North Lake. He'll move in 3 days." Kabuto caught something out of the corner of his eye and turned suddenly in alarm, but let out a soft sigh of relief. It was only a rabbit. That had startled him. He turned back around. "By the way, about the task you asked of me, Sasori-sama." After changing bodies, Orochimaru casts a jutsu on the cellular specimen of the leftover corpse, meant to preserve it. "I was unable to perform an analysis on that specimen." Sasori's expression didn't change. "I see." Kabuto held out a hand. "On that note, please give me the item we talked about. I can't continue to stay here much longer. If it's found out that I'm meeting you here like this, I'll be killed." "Very well." The fake Sasori grabbed something from inside his cloak, then his hand shot out, grasping a kunai. "Your conversation seems quite amusing," a silky voice said suddenly, from behind Kabuto. Orochimaru stood back to back with him, a snake curling away from his body and reaching for Kabuto's. "You wouldn't mind if I joined in, would you?" The snake suddenly squeezed around the teen, but he was already gone, leaving his cloak behind to get crushed. He turned to face the pale man, saying, "I almost wasn't able to step back in time. But, thanks to you taking out your kunai, Sasori-sama, I was." "That get-up of yours brings back memories, Sasori," Orochimaru said, his voice like velvet. "So you followed Kabuto, then?" the fake Sasori asked neutrally. "I just wanted to thank you. This boy you sent me, I was able to make quite good use of him," Orochimaru smirked. "In order for me to create new jutsu, I need to conduct experiments on well over 100 live humans. Thanks to this boy, I am able to use the same specimen any number of times I please. I had quite a hard time coming across test subjects. After all," Kabuto's hand glowed with chakra and he spun around, lopping off Sasori's head to reveal a black-haired ninja inside. Captain Yamato leapt from the wooden body and tried to retreat, but Orochimaru flung out a hand and hundreds of snakes shot forth, coiling around his body. One bit him on the neck, but he vanished, replaced by a piece of wood shaped roughly like him. "Mokuten ninjutsu, you couldn't be. Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto said, "is that the real Sasori?" "No, it's not," Orochimaru said. "Are you telling me that you, one of his own subordinates, don't even know what his real face looks like?" "He was a dark individual, after all," Kabuto said in his defense. "He was always hiding in that puppet of his." "What are you talking about?" Yamato clutched his injured right arm. You should be an Akatsuki spy. Aren't you still under the effects of Sasori's ninjutsu? Ah, yes, that jutsu, Kabuto grinned. Orochimaru-sama freed me from it quite some time ago. So, Yamato said darkly, you fell prey to Orochimaru's jutsu, then. I chose this path of my own will, Kabuto said, laughter in his voice. But tell me, who are you? I'll tell you about this boy later, Orochimaru said. But first, why don't you call out those 4 little mice hiding in the brush? Scowling, Yamato made a hand sign and 4 people leapt from the woods. Namikaze Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Hatake Kakashi landed on the bridge, each one glaring seriously at the snake-like man in front of them. Kabuto tilted his head back arrogantly, you again. I've seen that face a number of different times, Orochimaru said with a chuckle, staring at the blonde. Why don't we have a little fun? It seems the Kyubi boy brought Sasuke-kun to us all wrapped up as a gift. Naruto snarled, his fist shaking with rage. An oppressive aura was unleashed, and gravity suddenly seemed to quadruple in that instant, driving the air from Team 7's lungs. Kabuto staggered backwards, clutching his chest and his eyes wide with fear. Orochimaru's own eyes had widened slightly in surprise, but he showed no other reaction. Naruto drew his sword slowly, producing a long, sharp, ear-grating ring. In a flash, he was gone and Orochimaru leapt away from his slash, which sliced cleanly through the bridge and out the bottom. Taking advantage of the moment, he spun around and, with a fierce strike, lopped the shocked Kabuto's head off. There was a violent gush of blood, but Naruto paid it no attention. Damn you, boy, Orochimaru growled menacingly as his yellow eyes glared a hole in the blonde's forehead. Do you realize just how much I had to go through to keep him alive a year ago? Good, Naruto said coldly, icy blue eyes gleaming. He was supposed to die that night a year ago. That he survived is indeed a testament to your skill and ingenuity. That ice should have immobilized him completely, cutting off all escape while he bled his life away. He was given a year's extension and I decided to collect. The blonde's eyes narrowed, Orochimaru, you aren't worthy of being a ninja, or a senin. Swinging your blade out of a sense of duty, that is what ninja and senin do. Swinging your blade out of hate is nothing more than base violence. Ninja do not refer to that as fighting. You aren't worthy of being a ninja, especially a senin. How amusing, Orochimaru smirked. Do you mean to tell me, then, that there is no hatred in the blade that you hold right now? There was a pause, then a wave of pressure swept out from Naruto as an icy rage burned in his eyes. You're exactly right, Orochimaru. My blade is full of hate. I didn't come here to fight you. I came here to violently hack you to pieces. Orochimaru grunted slightly in panic as his knees jerked and threatened to buckle beneath him, his lips curling back as he struggled to throw off whatever it was that was pressing down on him. The sheer power radiating out from the blonde was blurring the edges of his vision and he struggled to claim each breath. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The Kyubi brat was strong, but he was still just a boy. He, Orochimaru, was one of the Sannin and was hailed around the elemental countries as one of the most elite of ninja. He had been a ninja of elite status while this boy's grandfather had been sucking his thumb. But this power, it was strong and it was harsh and it was frightening. 2.5 years the brat had been gone for, and after a single year of training, he hadn't seemed to improve substantially enough, only barely capable of defeating Kabuto. At that level of growth, it was fair to say that he wouldn't pose a threat for many more years, and he probably wouldn't get the chance to get that far. However, something seemed to have happened between that year and the end of the second year. The blonde boy before him had gone from being simply level with someone like, say, Kakashi, to being an S-class ninja. He had not yet become level with someone like Itachi or especially Pain and Madara, but his rate of growth was astounding. Standing unsteadily, his knees still shaking, Orochimaru opened his mouth wide and summoned his sword, the Kusanagi no Tsurugi, Ku no Tachi. He threw it up in a horizontal block just in time to defend against Naruto's vicious slash, the pressure disappearing as the blonde focused on the battle. If your blade is filled with hate, then you aren't worthy of being a ninja either, Naruto said, calm forced into his voice. That's what you're getting at, isn't it? You're right. But, I don't care if this fight costs me my status as a ninja. As long as I get to kill you, it doesn't matter. The swords jingled and clattered as each wielder tried desperately to overpower the other, glaring at their opponent. Orochimaru let out an angry breath through his teeth. yellow eyes glinting in dark anger. Naruto's mouth opened and words tumbled out, his wide blue eyes focused solely on the snake Sôten, Sôten ni zase, Hyôrinmaru. Naruto pushed away and jumped into the air, sending forth the titanic water dragon with a single downward swing of his sword. Orochimaru leapt back and dodged as it plowed into and through the wooden bridge, flinging his arm out and launching a torrent of thin, gangly snakes through the towering water. As they reached the other side, they were sliced to bits by the blade that swung around and through them, attached to a chain on Hyorinmaru's hilt. The area in front of the black-haired ninja blurred, and, suddenly, Naruto was standing there in front of him, sword soaring through the air. Orochimaru swung down and met his horizontal strike, sending both their arms backward in a vicious recoil. They swung at each other once more, this time holding their blades in a stalemate. "You're just like your father," Orochimaru hissed. "You're meddling, annoying, and always ruining my plans. I should have severed his head when I had the chance. My father was a greater person and ninja than you'll ever be," Naruto said lowly, snarling. "If it wasn't for people like you, he wouldn't have had to die." A kunai appeared in the blonde's hand and he swiped towards Orochimaru with it. The black-haired ninja deflected it with his sword, but wasn't prepared for the gleaming silver blade that sliced cleanly through his stomach and sent his torso flying. A thick trunk of snakes extended from both halves of his body and latched onto one another, pulling him back into one piece. Taking advantage of Naruto's distraction, who was too surprised by the man's vile ability, Orochimaru lashed out with a vicious punch, flinging the blonde backwards and into the ground. Coughing at the ache in his ribs, Naruto rose to his feet slowly. "Naruto!" Sakura cried worriedly. She made to go and help him, but Kakashi's hand and arm prevented her from moving. "Kakashi-sensei, let me go. If we don't help him, Naruto could." "If we help him," Kakashi said seriously, watching the events unfold in front of him, "what will become of his pride? If we were to jump into this battle now, we might save his life. At the same time, we will have destroyed his pride." "Pride?" Sakura asked incredulously. "What does pride matter? His life is more important than that." "Sakura-san," Kakashi said, still using his serious tone with narrowed eyes watching fiercely, "remember this. There are two types of battle. Whenever we fight, that fight must be one of these two types. The fight for life and the fight for pride." The blonde rose to his feet, spit out a glob of blood, muttered something that sounded like, "cheap shot," and vanished. "Right now," Kakashi continued, "he's fighting for pride. Sarutobi Hiruzen's pride, his father's pride, Konoha's pride, and, most importantly, his own personal pride." Naruto swung downwards and once more their swords locked in an epic and equal inverted tug of war. Naruto glared, hissing, "You're disgusting. You've traded everything, even your humanity, for an impossible dream. You've pissed off the wrong person this time, though, and I intend to follow through with my promise to kill you. Go back to your sandbox, boy," Orochimaru sneered. "Even you, with all of your training, cannot kill a ninja of my caliber." A gasp tore itself from the man's lips as a sword of gleaming silver pierced through his chest and heart, spearing him on it. The blonde in front of him disappeared in a puff of smoke and from behind him a voice whispered, "Can't I?" The body burst into a horde of snakes that twisted around as they hissed, biting the blonde viciously in several places. He, in turn, fell apart into water and splashed to the ground. Neither side, it seemed, had actually been injured in that exchange, as was evidenced by the substitutions they had pulled off. From a place a meter or two away from his previous spot, liquid mud bubbled up to form the black-haired, yellow-eyed Orochimaru. With the sound of a curtain fluttering in the breeze, Naruto reappeared as well, his blue eyes glaring daggers at the pale-skinned snake Sôten. Orochimaru tilted his head back arrogantly, his lips pulled back into a smirk. "I thought we were going to skip the warm-up." As he swiped his sword to the side, a blue and white aura lit up around the blonde's body. "I was giving you a chance to regret all of the things you have done in your life." The aura flared and the pale man's eyes widened in horror as a single word rolled past Naruto's lips, "Bankai." The wings, tail, dragon head gauntlet, claw, feet, and flowers of ice all made their reappearance, forming around his limbs and in the air. In an instant, Naruto had done what Orochimaru had feared he would do. He had called forth his full power and leveled it in the snake Sôten's direction. In a blur, Naruto vanished. Orochimaru barely had time to throw up a block and defend himself, Hyôrinmaru pressing down on the black steel of his blade. A chill crept down the dark metal and instantly the feared Kusanagi grew cold in his pale hands. His eyes flew wide open as an old emotion, one he hadn't felt since that fight with Sarutobi, crept into his body. Fear. Leaping backwards, Orochimaru flung out his free arms and sent a horde of snakes in the blonde's direction, desperately trying to destroy his foe. Naruto merely backed away to give himself some room and pointed his blade at the dark green and brown serpents. He intoned but a single word, Hyôrinmaru. 3 dragons of frigid water leapt from the tip of his shimmering steel, each one in possession of gleaming red eyes and a pair of feathery-looking wings. They twisted around each other, rushing forward and consuming the horde as if the scaly beasts were nothing and continuing on toward Orochimaru. With a scream of terror, the snake Sennin's mouth fell open and from it came a new body, even as the old one was overwhelmed and fell victim to the trio of dragons. The new body slithered along the ground at an astounding speed, rushing toward the cover of the trees in hopes of escaping. As Naruto stabbed his sword into the ground, he had no such luck. Hakyoku. Arctic, faster than he could dodge, 2 pillars rose and captured each of Orochimaru's arms, holding them as far apart as they could comfortably be. As his momentum stopped, a 3rd pillar rose and consumed his lower body, from his feet all the way up to his waist, trapping him where he stood. He struggled to get loose, pulling at each encased arm with all of his might, but the ice would not relinquish his captive flesh. Naruto appeared in front of him, a scowl on his face and his sword pointed in the black-haired man's direction. Consumed by his terror, Orochimaru threw his head back, opened his mouth wide, and screamed for all he was worth. From his body burst a giant white snake, which hissed as it curled its body and turned its slit black pupils and yellow eyes onto the blonde boy, who merely stared back. Giving its harsh, wispy version of a shriek, its mouth dropped open and revealed meter-long fangs that could cleave Naruto in half. It dived for him. The wings of solid ice curled protectively around Naruto's body, holding up against the white snake's assault as it tried to sink its fangs into his flesh. Naruto's scowl deepened and he hefted his sword, preparing for a finishing move. So this is your true form. With a burst of energy, he knocked the beast away, stunning it at his sudden maneuver. That presented the opportunity that Naruto would have had to have been crazy to pass up, and the blonde rushed forward, sword poised for a killing stroke. The snake could not have hoped to be prepared in time to dodge. With a harsh clink and the sound of flesh being rent asunder, Hyôrinmaru sunk past scale after pale white scale as it cut into the transformed Orochimaru, the gleaming silver disappearing into the creamy underbelly. The beastly snake screeched at this and writhed around, but it appeared unable to move its lower body. This is the end, Naruto said coldly, ice spreading from the open wound, which would not bleed, and slowly consuming the creature's massive body. Orochimaru seemed unable to hear these words, as he only continued to thrash around desperately. Your nerve receptions have been cut off below this point and I've damaged or even destroyed several of your internal organs. Only Tsunade could heal you now. The ice started to move faster, creeping up like a demonic vine and consuming the beast's neck and throat next. Desperately, Orochimaru turned his gaze downward and tried to catch Naruto's stare, but the blonde's eyes were shut tight, a ghost of a smirk on his lips, hoping to achieve eye contact in a desperate bid for your immortality jutsu. With a final shriek, Orochimaru was at last entirely consumed, standing as a solitary statue in the middle of a battlefield. Sighing, Naruto pulled his sword loose and sheathed it as his extra appendages evaporated away into nothingness. Scowling slightly, he leapt high into the air and landed on the tip of the snake's nose. This is to make sure there's no escaping this time, Naruto murmured under his breath, crouched atop the beast's frozen snout. He held out a single finger and pressed it up against the ice that covered the monster's forehead. In a soft but firm voice, he whispered, Hado no Yan, Byakurai. A thick bolt of erratic white lightning ripped forward, straight through both the nigh indestructible ice and the flesh and organs of the snake trapped within. Orochimaru's brains, Naruto knew, were likely nothing more than mush and lumps of fried gray matter now. He could never harm anyone again. Sasuke-kun, Sakura cried ecstatically, your curse mark, it's gone. Naruto stood and let out a breath of relief. Orochimaru was dead, and this time, for good. The office was quiet and almost empty, the silence pressing down on the sole 2 occupants of its wooden walls. Sunlight streamed in through the large windows positioned on the rear wall, casting bright light on the planks that covered the floor and the large, hardwood desk that sat near the center. There were 2 solitary figures in this room, occupying its hallowed space. Their faces were serious and dark, as though they were facing a decision they would rather not make, or remembering memories they would rather forget. Between them, this expression was shared, varying only in the way it was etched onto their faces. Did it bring lines, or soft curves of the lips? The first figure was tall and powerful, standing on thick red geta sandals near the windows and staring out at the giant stone monument that watched over the village. His untamable hair was white and spiky and long, reaching all the way down to his knees, if not farther. He was dressed in olive drab with a metal plate on his forehead. Jiraiya of the Sannin, the Toad Sage. The second figure was a woman, apparently in her 20s, with womanly attributes that seemed almost impossibly large and ill-proportioned for her body. Her amber gaze was solemn as she read the paper in her hands, feeling, for one of the first times in a long time, the burden of being Hokage the Fifth. This woman was Tsunade of the Sannin, renowned throughout the underworld as the legendary sucker and generally thought of as the worst gambler in history. She was also somewhere in her 50s, despite her youthful looks, and was a master of both genjutsu disguises and medical ninjutsu. Tsunade set the paper down on her desk and sighed, rubbing her forehead with a single shaking hand. Quietly, she asked, "Is this the truth, then?" "Yes," Jiraiya said, his voice sounding so stern it was as if he were handing her own death sentence to her. "I checked it out for myself, just to confirm the reports, but it's just as they said it was." "He's gone," she whispered. A single tear leaked out of her eye, but she paid it no mind. She chuckled derisively, mirthlessly, at her own reaction. "For so long, I've hated him for leaving us, for abandoning our team the way he did. But, a part of me is sad that he's gone. A part of me remembers our time as genin and can't help but cry." "I know how you feel," Jiraiya murmured. "He may have been one of the worst traitors to have ever come from Konoha, and he wasn't even really human anymore, but, I think he was the only one of us three that managed to truly sever those friendship bonds." Tsunade sighed and hung her head. "So, Naruto was the one to do it?" "From what I understand, yes," Jiraiya responded. "According to Kakashi, he fought the way he was expected to and took revenge for Sarutobi-sensei. Uchiha Sasuke-san's curse seal is also gone, which confirms it. Orochimaru is really dead this time." Tsunade glanced at him. "And what of Akatsuki?" Jiraiya shifted. "According to my spies and Itachi himself, we've taken down Deidara, Akasuna no Sasori, and Hoshigaki Kisame. That leaves the leader, Pain, his right hand, Konan, their spy, Zetsu, and the two-man team, Hidan and Kakuzu. Also according to him, that clone they fought on the way to rescuing Gaara was a mere 30% of Hidan's full power." The older man frowned. "I've also been informed that there is a new recruit by the name of Tobi, though nothing else I have on him is concrete. And also," Jiraiya walked over to look at the portraits of the Hokage, "also, I think I know who Pain is." Tsunade's head whipped around so fast, he could have sworn her neck cracked. "What?" "It's been bothering me for a while now," Jiraiya told her, "this information I was given. So far, most of it's just speculation and I've drawn my conclusions from that, but, I think Pain is a kid I taught once a long time ago." Tsunade eyed him. "How long ago is a long time ago?" Jiraiya frowned, his voice wistful. "Long ago. Before even Minato-kun. But you're not sure." Tsunade repeated his words. "You've got some information but it's not solid enough for you to go on." "Yeah, but," he started. "Then don't bother with it," she told him firmly. "If you're not sure if it's valid, then don't bother with it. We need as many strong ninja around as we can get if we're going to defend against the Akatsuki. And they will come here. It's just a matter of time." Jiraiya sighed. "You're right. I think I'll just forget about it for now." "You're right, it's probably nothing. I mean, what are the chances that he's actually shown up again after all these years, huh? Ha, I must have been crazy to think that he was the one behind all of this. I mean, I'm not even sure he made it through that war." Jiraiya laughed, but it was hollow, and it seemed, just like his words, as if he were merely trying to convince himself. They both knew his hunches were usually right, so he was probably right about this one, too. But Tsunade didn't want to let him go, not now, when she knew he was likely to get himself killed in a battle like that. She didn't have all the information, but she knew Pain wasn't someone you mess with casually. After all, he had to be damn tough to be leader of the Akatsuki. He wouldn't have had 8 loyal, bloodthirsty murders on his side if he wasn't the strongest of the bunch. Considering the level Itachi was on, this guy had to be a veritable god. No, she decided, she wouldn't let Jiraiya go on this suicide mission, not without someone of equal strength as backup. For that, she would have to wait for Kakashi to bring back Naruto from the tower. She shivered. She had to sympathize with her fellow blonde. The tower was a horrible place, even if it was one of the most effective training tools out there. Well, Jiraiya waved and turned around, opening the door. I'll see you around, Tsunade-hime. What Jiraiya didn't say was what he thought next. Nagato-kun, what have you done? The sun was bright, casting its yellow rays down upon the foliage. The grass and the leaves were as lively a green as they could possibly be and stretched towards the sky. In the breeze, the tree branches swayed and they looked to be waving at the sun, saying hello to another beautiful day and a bright morning. Through these trees did two figures travel, moving forwards at amazing speeds. Their forms were a blur, indistinguishable as they rushed toward their goal so fast that they seemed nothing but a mirage from the hot sun. There 1 second, then vanishing a mere moment later, as if they had never been there. The first figure was tall, with spiky gray hair that stuck up at an odd angle, almost as if it were deliberately defying gravity. Slung over his left eye was a blue headband with a metal plate stuck in the center, a swirling leaf carved onto it. He wore a green flak jacket and a blue shirt and pants. Hatake Kakashi. The second figure was just as tall as his older counterpart with golden, sun-kissed blonde hair that was even spikier than Kakashi's. His headband was tied around his right biceps with the metal plate facing out. He had blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. He wore his usual zip-up, sleeveless turtleneck and black pants. Namikaze Naruto. Where are we going, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked for the first time. Indeed, it was the first time they had talked at all during the entire trip. Both had remained silent, but Naruto couldn't stop himself from asking. After all, it's been 3 days since we started traveling, and you still haven't told me where we're going. Kakashi was silent for a moment, as if pondering how to answer the questions asked of him. Finally, he said, Jiraiya-sama left your training in my hands, now, and there's nothing I can teach you that you could learn anymore. You're a Sôten master and I'm horrible with Fuden element jutsu, so I'm going to do something I promised. Promised to who? Naruto asked. Your father, Kakashi said seriously. It's a promise I made that fateful night nearly 16 years ago, just moments after you had been born. He asked me, no, he begged me, sensei begged me to do this for him. He made me promise that, when I could teach you nothing more, and when Jiraiya couldn't teach you anything else, that I'd take you to the final training. Final training? Naruto repeated curiously. Kakashi nodded. It's something of a tradition for potential Hokage, or those who are to succeed the current Hokage. Shodai was the first to take it, then he led his brother the Nadaime to it and had him take it, and then your father took it, and the Sandaime took Jiraiya-sama, Orochimaru, and Tsunade-hime and had them take it. Wait, Naruto interrupted, jumping off another branch, what about the old man? Didn't he? No, Kakashi said, Sandaime-sama didn't take this training. For him, the prospect was too difficult and he could not bring himself to experience the horrors of this method of training. This is no normal training, you see. The Hokage used it as a way to find and strengthen their resolve to protect the village. Wow, Naruto whistled. This training's that hard, then? Yes, it is, Kakashi answered. For this isn't just physical training, training of the body. This training is to hone the mind and to cast aside weakness and indecision. A Hokage must be able to look at his warriors and see the people, but treat them as if they were pieces in a shogi game. To do so, he must first complete this training and face the one person he could never bring himself to battle. This training is both emotional and physical. Naruto cast a look down thoughtfully, murmuring, Hinata-chan. Kakashi shook his head, no, you will not face Hinata-san. She is strong in her own right, but nowhere near strong enough to match you in an all-out battle. The person you will have to battle will be someone who means something to you, but someone you also view as superior to yourself. Naruto blinked, like who? Jiraiya-sama, Kakashi said, his voice slightly unsure, or perhaps Sandaime-sama. I cannot say for sure who it is you will have to fight against, but I know it will be someone powerful that you have known or consider important or close to your heart. Perhaps they will be all three, and you will lose. Naruto looked alarmed, but Kakashi allayed his fears, don't worry, you won't die. Like I said, this is training. It's supposed to help you get better, not kill you off. Oh, Naruto said lamely. You know, you never did answer my question. Where are we going? Kakashi was silent for a few moments, merely continuing his forward momentum and launching himself through the trees as they moved onward. After a little while, though, and Naruto was about to ask again, the Cyclops wannabe gray-haired Jonin announced in a solemn voice, "We're here." Naruto looked forward and landed gracefully as the line of trees ended. He was about to ask where, here, was when the words died in his throat and his eyes went wide as he caught sight of what stood in front of him. Beside him, Kakashi was smirking beneath his mask, obviously amused at the blonde's reaction. "Whoa," Naruto whispered, staring straight ahead. In front of him, standing in the middle of a plot of barren land, was a large tower the likes of which he had never seen. Its top was invisible, hiding inside of a group of ominous-looking black clouds. The rest of the sky, strangely enough, was clear and bright blue. "Where are we? This, Naruto-kun, is the final destination," Kakashi said, as though he were a showman introducing an act at the circus. "This is the Tower of Lost Souls." The outside, Naruto decided as they walked through the thick wooden doors, was very impressive, but it didn't hold a candle to the inside. The floors were made of solid stones that looked as if they weighed several hundred pounds, and the walls similarly made, each piece carved to perfection. Stained glass windows filled the entire place and the rooms of the tower were a great deal more spacious than the outside led one to believe. Light, dim and low, painted patterns on the bronze floor, but the tower seemed to have its own invisible light source that illuminated the rooms. In silence, Kakashi led him up stair after stair, passing floor after gilded floor and going up staircase after staircase. The winding steps started to make him dizzy, but he kept his gaze firm and resolutely forward, following the gray-haired man in front of him. That was the 10th floor, now, and he had yet to see anything. At the 15th floor, he was starting to get nervous and broke their quiet vigil. "Hey, Kakashi-sensei, how far up are we going?" "To the 60th floor, Kakashi answered solemnly. "There, the tower guardian awaits us, and will choose the form he believes best suited to battle you." Naruto swallowed apprehensively, muttering, "Tower guardian, huh?" The silence of the tower itself didn't end until they reached the 30th floor, where Naruto could hear the beginnings of thunder as it crashed against the walls of the tower, but did not shake the tall structure. Flashes of lightning passed in front of the windows now, and the dim light was gone, leaving only the artificial light source to lead them. At the 40th floor, Naruto began to hear other noises. There were moans and groans, the lamentations of lost souls, those who could not depart the mortal plane, but Naruto could see nothing. He settled for biting his lip nervously, following his gray-haired teacher as they continued to ascend, heedless of the noises. The 50th floor was when Naruto discovered that they weren't the only occupants of the tower, for there certainly were others. Warriors of all kinds and civilians dressed in rags filled the floors, their bodies transparent and intangible and chains that protruded from their chests locking them to the floors. With a shiver, Naruto tore his eyes away from the suffering figures and marched onward. At the 59th floor, Kakashi suddenly stopped and turned to the side, gesturing with his hand, "Only you can continue onward. This is your fight, you must do this alone." Hesitantly, Naruto stepped forward, schooling his face into a neutral expression to hide the anxiety flitting just beneath the surface. There was a crack of vicious thunder and a flash of bright lightning as he ascended the last step, blinding him and hiding the room from him. His vision came back slowly and he reached up to rub the spots from his eyes. A gasp tore itself from his lips when he could see again, for he had discovered who it was he would be facing. In a whisper, he uttered, "Yondaime Hokage." And, indeed, that was who stood at the opposite end of the tower, his back to the stained glass window behind him. His blonde hair was even spikier than Naruto's and his Hitai was tied snugly around his forehead, his piercing blue eyes gazing forward with a seriousness that caught Naruto by surprise. The man looked much like what Naruto had seen in his textbooks as a child. He was tall, just a few centimeters more so than Kakashi, and lean with squared shoulders and a strong stance. His hair was bright golden yellow and refused to be tamed by methods man or nature. His eyes were like blue sapphires, or chips of ice. Over top of the standard Jonin outfit, he wore his trademark white coat, the short sleeves ending about halfway down his chiseled but lean biceps. Red flames danced around the bottom hem, licking at the white and immortalized in cloth and thread. Black sandals left the front open to reveal tan toes. There was one thing, Though, that set Naruto on edge, for it hadn't been mentioned at all in the many books and biographies written about this legendary figure. Slung over his right shoulder and tied there with a green cloth was the familiar blue-wrapped hilt of Hyorinmaru, sheathed in black. Reaching up for the instrument of destruction on his back, the Yondaime walked forward, intoning 4 words as he unsheathed his weapon, Sôten ni zase, Hyôrinmaru. In a blur, the man disappeared, but Naruto was already prepared for him and had drawn his own sword, intoning his own command phrase, Sôten ni zase, Hyôrinmaru. In a crash of ice and water, the 2 identical swords met, Naruto's defending and Namikaze Minato's attacking. With an angry scoff, Naruto pushed with all his might against the opposing steel, but he could not knock the sword away. Seemingly oblivious to his strain, Minato had a neutral expression on his face. Naruto racked his brain, trying to find logic behind this strange revelation. How did the Yondaime Hokage, his father, have a copy of Hyôrinmaru? The dragon was supposed to be an original, wasn't he? Incapable of being reproduced. Then how had this spirit masquerading as his father pulled out another Hyôrinmaru? He couldn't find any sense in it. Kakashi would have told him if his father had had these abilities. No, Naruto knew that his skills in Hyôrinmaru itself were unique, even if Tenten, Hinata, and Sasuke had swords capable of similar amazing feats. Somehow, though, this spirit had copied his weapon. With a snarl, Naruto leapt backwards and swung his sword down, unleashing a giant beast of a water dragon that soared towards his opponent. Minato stood firm as it bore down on him, taking a single step forward and slashing his blade downward as the beast came crashing towards him. It split in half and evaporated into thin air. Growling, Naruto unleashed a second water dragon at the blonde man, but Minato jumped deftly over top of the winding creature and released one of his own. It was slightly darker than Naruto's, more of a purple than crystal blue, but it held no less power and ferocity. Naruto leapt to the side and out of the way, dodging it as it collided with the floor and splashed around. In a blur, they disappeared again and, in the center of the round room, clashed once more, blades locked in a fierce, inverted tug-of-war. Yondaime clearly had the upper hand, so Naruto knocked the sword to the side and went for another swing, this time a vertical slash. It was blocked nearly effortlessly. Naruto would not be deterred, however, and swung a third time. It was blocked once again and Naruto wound up for 4th slash. It too was blocked, but Naruto would not allow his opponent time to set up an adequate defensive base and pointed toward the right side of the man's chest, chanting, Hado no Yan, Byakurai. Almost effortlessly, it seemed, Yondaime moved to the side and the bolt of white lightning discharged from Naruto's finger missed him, if only just. Then, he swung back around with a punch straight to Naruto's nose, sending the blonde boy flying back into the wall, where he slid to the floor, groaning. Minato walked forward slowly once more, stopping once he was at a reasonable distance, not too close but not too far, and raised his free hand, pointing with his index finger. In the same flat tone he'd used to unleash Hyôrinmaru, he recited a new phrase, Hado no Yan, Byakurai. Eyes snapping open, Naruto dodged to the left just in time to miss getting hit with the ferocious bolt of lightning that crashed into the wall. Miraculously, the wall itself remained undamaged, as though it had never been attacked in the first place. Naruto, however, felt the heat of the attack in the air next to him. Leaping forward as fast as he could, Naruto lashed out with all his strength against the spirit impersonating his father, the creature that had stolen the 4th Hokage's image. The spirit blocked, but it had apparently underestimated him, for its defense wavered and shook during the initial collision. Jumping backwards and away from the blonde boy, Minato reached into the holster tied to his right leg and pulled out several kunai. Settling into a defensive stance, Naruto waited, but didn't have to move at all. Each and every throw sent one of the projectiles to a point that wouldn't have even hit him unless he jumped in front of it. Then, as the man in front of him disappeared with a yellow flicker, Naruto realized, with growing fear and horror, why none of the weapons had actually been aimed at him. He spun around, but wasn't fast enough to dodge the punch that slammed into his chin, knocking him backwards. He was on his feet again in a split second, but Yondaime had already disappeared again. A prickling on the edge of his senses was all the warning he got and he ducked down, watching as the man's fist soared into the spot his head had just occupied. A sliver of his confidence returned for a second, but it was dashed as the man disappeared, only to land a harsh knee to his gut. Standing up weakly, Naruto sloppily dodged the next blow, only to turn around and do something he had sworn he would never do again. He ran away. As fast as he could, he headed towards the stairs, but Yondaime reappeared in front of them and slashed downwards. Naruto stopped and desperately flung himself to the side. Rising to his feet as fast as he could, Naruto stumbled as he rushed to get away from the impossibly strong man in front of him. Yondaime disappeared again and was suddenly running alongside him, before turning abruptly to slash at him. Naruto dodged around it, but just barely. This is so pathetic, Naruto thought as he turned and continued to flee. What am I doing? Why am I running away? Yondaime reached out with a hand and grabbed him by the high collar of his vest, pulling him backwards and flinging him into the ground. Raising his sword high, the blonde man swung downwards, as if to cleave the boy in two. With a short cry of fear, Naruto rolled out of the way. I'm so disgusted with myself. Rolling to his feet, he continued to run, nearly tripping over his own feet in his haste to escape. It's pathetic. Pathetic. Yes, that's you, a familiar voice answered, and suddenly the world was frozen around him. Surprised and with adrenaline pumping through his veins, Naruto looked wide-eyed up at the towering form of Hyorinmaru. The dragon's red eyes bored deeply into his, and at once, a second set of eyes appeared, more humanoid, but just as red. A deeper, darker voice asked, "Why are you running away?" "You still haven't discovered my next power yet," Hyorinmaru stated matter-of-factly. "Face forward and you should be able to find it. The only thing blinding your eyes is your own fear. There's only one enemy in one of you," the second voice told him, "so what is there to be afraid of?" "My container, are you so pathetic? Abandon your fear," Hyorinmaru stated calmly. "Turn and face him," the Kyubi growled. "Don't give an inch. Advance. Never stop," they cried together. "If you retreat, you will age. If you hesitate, you'll die." Hyorinmaru growled, "Now, Kimi no na wo yobu." Naruto cried as time started again, spinning around to face his enemy. "Hyorinmaru, I call your name." Ice ring. A tidal wave of intangible power swept throughout the room, followed by a billowing cloud of smoke that obscured Naruto from view. Holding his arms in front of his face, Yondaime's lips twitched upwards just the slightest bit. His cloak fluttered and his hair rustled, but he stood his ground. As the smoke cleared, a new form could be seen. Naruto stood still, his sword virtually unchanged save for the 8-pointed star hand guard. A diamond-shaped ice block was attached to his left forearm and a pauldron of solid ice had formed on his right arm. A pair of feathery wings, also made of ice, but much thinner than the normal Bankai wings, sprouted from his shoulders. The entire floor was frozen over. "Bishamonten," Naruto said calmly, "Hyorinmaru." Lifting his sword up, he stabbed it into the frozen ground with a grunt. At once, spikes of ice shot up and speared through each of the tri-pronged kunai lodged in the stone blocks. The metal shattered easily, as if it had been made of glass rather than steel, and fell to pieces around the room. With that stoic frown still on his face, Yondaime leapt back and unleashed a purplish dragon of water from his sword. Without batting an eyelash, Naruto jumped right into it, holding up his left arm in defense. In response to this action, the diamond-shaped configuration on his left forearm transformed into a large shield. It cleaved through the dragon like paper. As the beast dwindled to nothing and he came closer to the spirit impersonating his father, Naruto swiped the remnants to the side with the shield, which shrunk back into its original shape as he stabbed forward. Yondaime didn't move fast enough to avoid the full damage of the attack and a thin cut carved itself into his right cheek. With a dangerous glint in his eyes, Yondaime made his own stab. Naruto didn't bother to dodge, as it collided with his protected right shoulder and slid right around the icy armor. In close, Naruto reared back his left hand and curled it into a fist, then let it fly into the man's stomach, sending him crashing into the wall. Standing up with a wheezing pant, Minato's left eye was half-lidded as he stared at the boy across from him. His left arm hung at an odd angle and his right arm was curled protectively around his midsection. His hitai slipped off and fell to the icy ground with a sharp clang of steel and a clatter of metal. In a blur, Naruto vanished and Yondaime couldn't move in time to dodge the attack that was delivered to him. Before he could stop it, the cold steel of the blonde boy's sword had stabbed straight through his stomach and out the other side. Red began to blossom on the back of his white coat as he gave a grunt and lurched forward onto the boy's shoulder. The second half of his sword fell to the ground, broken off when he had attempted to block. Kono Hyorinmaru no Sakai, Naruto whispered in his ear. Kono or no Sakai, this is Hyorinmaru's world, this is my world. As Naruto wrenched his sword free, Yondaime stumbled backwards but maintained an upward stance. He held tenderly to the stab wound in his stomach, but looked up at the blonde boy in front of him with a smile. His body began to fade away, small blue particles floating up towards the ceiling. I'm proud of you, the man whispered, my son. In a flash, he was gone, leaving nothing behind but the infamous code of the yellow flash. As his Bankai faded away, Naruto picked it up curiously, looking at it. There should have been a hole in it from the stab he had given the man, but it was in perfect condition, and even the right size for him, too. Turning it over onto the back, the words, Konoha no Ryujin, were stitched on there in red. With a smile, Naruto draped it over his shoulders and headed for the stairs. The ice in the room had melted and all evidence that a battle had taken place was gone, leaving it just as it had been before he had come. As he reached the top step, Naruto stopped and looked back, whispering, thanks, Tusen. The door to the vast room opened with a loud creak, alerting anyone in the room that someone else was entering. There was a loud clip-clop, as though whoever it was stood on tall, hard wooden sandal instead of the normal shinobi sandals. Still, the room's sole other occupant made no move and did not turn around to see who had come. Papers of all kinds filled the desk and were piled on top of it, burying it until none of the hard wood was visible from above. A single bottle of sake sat amongst them, the only break in a monotonous stream of wood-derived sheets. The bottle was only half full, proving that someone had indeed been drinking from it. Jiraiya crossed his arms, looking at the woman behind the chair seriously. So, you sent the squads out, did you? Tsunade looked up at him. I had no other choice. Then, Jiraiya said, I take it you've heard that the Akatsuki is in the area. That they've taken Chiraku's body after having defeated him rather soundly. Yes, I've heard all of that, she said gloomily. She reached for the bottle and took another deep swig, ignoring the frown Jiraiya gave her for her actions. That's why I sent them out in the first place. Until Naruto and Kakashi get back, you and I are one of the few ninja who could actually fight on level with these people. True as that is, Tsunade, you're sending several good ninja out to their deaths, Jiraiya said sternly. You and I both know that half of the people you sent out there, half of the shinobi you commanded to search for these two men, are unable to hold their own against enemies of this caliber, of S-ranked caliber. I know Jiraiya, Tsunade said angrily. I know what I did, and I'm not happy about it, but I'm Hokage, damn it, and I had to do it. Even if all they turn out to be is a distraction to keep Akatsuki's attention for a few hours, it's a few hours that we desperately need. In a few years, Naruto will be the strongest shinobi we have. Already, he's at least Kakashi's level. Maybe. Jiraiya's voice rose to match hers. But we can't pin all of our hopes on a single shinobi. We should have learned that the day Minato marched off to battle the Kyubi. Every shinobi is capable of dying, whether we want to believe that or not. Shodai died, Nadaime died, Sarutobi-sensei died, Minato-kun died, Orochimaru died. None of us is immortal, Tsunade, least of all a 15-year-old boy. Maybe not, shouted Tsunade. But he'll surpass all of us. Shodai, Nadaime, Sandaime, Sarutobi-sensei, Yondaime, Minato-kun, Gadaime, me, Densetsu no Sanin, Hanzo the Salamander, Rakudo Sennin, he'll be better than all of us. You can see it, too, Jiraiya. That's why you started training him in the first place. But that's the point, Tsunade. Jiraiya said angrily, pounding his fist on the desk. He hasn't yet. He's strong. Damn strong. But he's not strong enough yet. He's still growing. He still needs time before he has broken all of those previous records. But the way you're going, he might die before he gets the chance. No, he won't, Tsunade denied vehemently. You and I have both seen it. No matter what the odds, no matter who he faces, Naruto has never been forced to use the Kyubi's chakra in all the time we've known him. And you and I both know, Jiraiya, that the Kyubi would force its chakra on him if he thought Naruto was going to die. Damn it, Tsunade, that's not the point. Jiraiya growled angrily. You're risking his life unnecessarily. He's strong, but even he can't face the entire Akatsuki and come out with his life. All of them are dangerous S-class shinobi who have their names practically engraved into the bingo books. Naruto is only one person. And once he kills these other two, that'll leave the Akatsuki with a total of 4 people. Tsunade responded in kind. She flashed 4 fingers in his face. 4. Jiraiya. 4. With a number like that, you, me, Naruto, and Itachi could annihilate them. They wouldn't stand a snowball's chance. But, Tsunade. Jiraiya started. Jiraiya, Tsunade said seriously. As soon as Naruto defeats these 2 jokers and recovers from all his injuries, I'm going to allow you and him to check up on that lead you were telling me about the other day. Jiraiya paused. You're serious? Yes, I am, Tsunade said. Fine, Jiraiya said through tight lips. But keep one of these. He stabbed a tri-pronged kunai into her desk. On you at all times, just in case things get hairy and we need to make a hasty escape. If that's what it takes to get you to drop this issue, Jiraiya, Tsunade replied evenly, then that's exactly what I'll do. Without another word, Jiraiya left her office. The building was long and white, with red panels along the awnings on the sides. It wasn't much to look at, considering that it was run down and decrepit, but it served its purpose well and the disheveled look made it all the less suspicious. After all, who would think that this humble and crumbling building was actually an exchange point for bounties? That was the point. If you were a bounty hunter, you wouldn't want other bounty hunters or, worse yet, high-class shinobi to catch you off guard and steal your bounty from you, would you? So what better way to keep your prize safe and get the money you deserved than to hide it in some place no one would ever think to look? This was the building 2 figures approached, one with his head and face obscured save for his demonic eyes, and the other with slicked back gray hair and purple eyes carrying a large, 3-bladed scythe. The former turned to enter the building, catching the attention of his companion. Hey, where are you going? The bathroom. His partner gave him no response, so, with a smirk, he said, fine. Wait up, and followed him. The bathroom was indeed where they wound up, the masked man carrying a graying corpse over his shoulder. He stopped in the middle of the room, then turned to a blank section of the wall, as if it held the answer to all of life's mysteries. He pressed a hand up against the stone and, after a pause, the wall fell away. The gray-haired man could only stare. This is the exchange point, the masked man, Kakuzu, said stoically. Why the hell did they pick a bathroom, anyway? Kakuzu's partner, Hidan, asked irritably. A man looked out from the fallen section of wall, his head bald and scarred. This way, please. They followed him through the wall, Hidan a bit more hesitantly than Kakuzu, and into a large dark room. At the far wall, there were thousands and thousands of what appeared to be filing drawers. As they came upon them, though, and the bald man opened one of them, Hidan realized that this was where the bounties were stored. Here, please, the bald man stated. Grunting in acknowledgement, Kakuzu hefted Chiraku up and set him down on the drawer. Hidan looked on uninterestedly. Make it quick, will you? The bald man was flipping through a book, looking up the face of the man lying on the drawer. As he reached it, the page marked, Chiraku, he compared the picture to the face on the dead man and nodded to himself, snapping the book shut as he said, there's not mistaking it. That's Chiraku. You caught yourself a big one, Kakuzu-san. Yeah, Kakuzu grunted stoically. The man walked over to the lateral wall and pulled from a safe a suitcase of money, grabbing it and making his way back to Kakuzu. He set it down and Kakuzu unsnapped the hinges, checking the contents almost suspiciously. This place reeks, Hidan said suddenly. Let's go already, Kakuzu. Hang on, Kakuzu said, I need to count the money. I can't tell whether the stench is piss or if it's that body, Hidan said, scowling angrily, but seriously, it's damn gross. I'm going back outside. Walking back outside, Hidan marched down the steps and plopped onto the last one angrily. He watched birds feed off of something on the ground, but could find nothing in it that would soothe his anger. He lifted up his sleeve and took a tentative whiff, then scoffed angrily, damn, that's nasty. He flung the cloth away from his face as fast as he could. I was in there for all of about 5 minutes, and already that stench has sunk into my clothes. Footsteps from behind him caught his attention and he turned his head slightly. Took you long enough, Kakuzu. Whatever else he might have said was cut off as he realized that Kakuzu wasn't the one standing behind him. He leapt to his feet, maneuvering the cord of his scythe as several of his enemy's shuriken came flying towards him. The metal cord deflected them in several different directions, protecting him. Pulling on the cord, Hidan flung the sharp blades in Asuma's direction. Asuma jumped out of the way, but Hidan's attack had left him vulnerable on both sides to a flanking formation, proved when Izumo and Kotetsu came towards him with their large blades drawn and poised to strike. In that instant, Hidan also found that he couldn't move, and saw, at his feet, a long shadow reaching towards him. Sitting atop the building was a teenager in standard Chunin garb with his hands in a hand seal and a long, dark shadow reaching out from his feet. He had a smug grin on his face, as if all had gone according to his plan. Too slow, Shikamaru said victoriously. Izumo and Kotetsu's weapons sunk past his coat and into his flesh, giving him a mortal wound. Asuma appeared again, his mouth already moving. That's one down. There was a long pause, as though the Konoha team was savoring its victory. Izumo and Kotetsu were the first to recognize something was wrong, which became evident as Hidan spoke once again. Man, that hurt like hell. What's the matter with you? What's going on? Kotetsu gasped out. We hit his vital organs. Stop shaking, Hidan whined. That really hurts. Is he immortal? No shit, dumbass, Hidan said sarcastically. Now, who the hell are you people? At this point, he caught sight of Asuma's sash. Ah, that sash. That belongs to those ninja guardians. Ah, man, I'm going to have to go inside that hellhole of an exchange point again. We're shinobi from Konoha, Asuma said firmly. We've been ordered to either capture or exterminate Akatsuki. As you Akatsuki work in two-man teams, we'd planned on capturing one of you after eliminating the other. But, he pulled out his trench knives. You've got some serious power. Well, Hidan chuckled, you guys really screwed up the order. Where's your partner? Asuma demanded. There was a gasp from Shikamaru, and that section of the building suddenly collapsed as it became apparent that Hidan's partner had appeared. The dust from the destruction cleared slowly, but as it did, Shikamaru appeared fine and undamaged. In fact, standing behind him, with Kakuzu's fist trapped in his right hand, was Uchiha Itachi. Kakuzu-san, Itachi said stoically. It's been a while, Itachi, Kakuzu breathed. You traitor, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The next part will be out soon.